Good evening to everybody. This is a special board meeting of the Board of Trustees. Let the record reflect today is Monday, June the 29th, 2020. I do call this meeting to order. I do declare that we have a quorum present. This afternoon, Mr. Stansberry will lead us in the pledges, and Mr. Rector will lead us in the invocation. If everybody will please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for the love you have shown us by allowing us to be here this afternoon. We pray, Lord, for this nation as a whole, as we fight the coronavirus. Lord, we pray that you bless us to be mindful of the things we need to do, keep each other safe. And now we ask that you bless us as we begin this meeting this evening. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. For his sake we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Terry and David. Before we start, I would like to wish Mr. Rector a happy birthday. You're still counting? It is going up. Normally, we start our meetings with public testimony, but tonight, I'm going to say that I requested a special meeting so Ms. Cook could give the community and the Board of Trustees an update on our formalized plan for reopening our schools. We know that our parents have a lot of questions about our safety protocols that we're going to implement, and also what instruction will look like this next school year. As most of you know already, Governor Abbott and TEA have publicized what the options are to start school. Those options include an on-campus instruction at 100% of the time, remotely learning or distance learning like we did when the pandemic first started. And the third option they have is a hybrid learning where students can plan to participate in a mix of campus or remote learning. I know Ms. Cook and her team has been working hard the last few weeks to keep all our students safe and have the protocols in place, and also to provide the best educational opportunity for our students. So before I ask Ms. Cook to give us her presentation, I do want to stress, I know we are recording this meeting for any parents that listen to it, that the pandemic is changing, it's fluid, and it requires a change to be equally of that nature. And we see that in our national response and our state responses. I'm sure at some point, Ms. Cook will come back with changes that we need to do to our plan as we change to what's happening statewide and nationally. And I know Ms. Cook will be diligent in making sure that those changes are communicated to our parents in a timely manner. The last thing I'd like to say is that the pandemic's changing what our traditional public system looks like. It's changing our delivery method. There's no playbook, so what we're doing on a daily basis is coming from guidance we're getting from TEA and the governor, and then protocols that we're establishing locally. So as the school year approaches, I want to ask our parents to please be cognizant of that. Please make sure that you're working closely with the principals and the teachers and keeping that line of communication. And also remember that we're in this crisis together. So with that said, Ms. Cook, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Galvan. I appreciate that. Yes, I want to begin also reiterating that. I appreciate seeing some of our parents here this evening. I think that's wonderful. I know it's a little scary coming out and being amongst one another, but this is a difficult time. And ever since we came back from spring break, it has been an ever-changing landscape. And the difficult part about this for us as an administration team and our teachers is it has constantly changed and continues to constantly change. So imagine trying to build something very quickly with no rules, or well, you might get some rules, but then they change the rules as you start building it, and So that's the scenarios we've been having. Our first and foremost concern from the onset, and especially now as we even think about having students come on campuses, is safety. That is our main concern. This is how if we're supposed to do this. How do we keep the students safe? How do we keep our staff safe? And especially right now when we're seeing an uptick in cases and in our area. We have been very blessed that we have not seen very many here. And now we're feeling the pain of it. Many of us sat in meetings and said, do any of you know anyone that has COVID? And strangely enough, for months, no, we didn't personally know anyone that had it. And now I'm pretty sure if I asked everyone in this room, not only do we know people, we have people very, very close to us that have it. So I want to stress that for anyone listening, for our parents and the board tonight, that we are all suffering this with you. We're in this together. And we all have our own families and our own needs that we're trying to struggle through to try to figure out how to make all that work. While we also do our job that we're called to do, which is provide an educational opportunity for the children that live in our district while we keep them safe. So that's our charge, and that's what we're diligently trying to do. What I'm going to share tonight is a flyover of not just weeks, but months of thinking about this, praying about this, thinking about it more, talking back and forth, listening to the commissioner of the education system, to the governor, talking to other school districts. Once a week I'm in meetings with other school superintendents in our area. So looking at what CDC says, what the federal level says, trying to take all of that and sift it and make it make sense then bring it down to what's best for Aransas Pass. Because in the end, that's what we care about, is what's best for us. So that's a little background information. So as we go through this is information as of today. And I want to stress that again, and that is the hardest part of this. And actually, some of what I'm even going to share that we put in the board book on Thursday has already started changing. Because Thursday we put the board book together. Friday, the governor comes and he starts retracting back because of the COVID cases. I have a meeting on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The TEA commissioner we listen to him, and he works with a task force with the governor, and then he gives us our direction. So by tomorrow at 3 o'clock, when we meet with the commissioner again, every bit of this could change again. So I know that's frustrating. Believe me, if anybody's frustrated about it, it is me. Because I've been graciously, I'm so blessed that the board has allowed me to be the leader of this district, but I could tell my team all the time, I'm not for sure where I'm leading you. It's very difficult because, normally you have a clear path, you know where you want to go, and then we just got to figure out how to get there. And right now, they keep changing our path. So I want to say, as the leader of this district, though, that we are taking this very seriously, and we are going to ensure that we do everything we can to protect those children. That is our first and main focus. So we wanted to, in order to make good decisions, we also need to have information from our stakeholders. Our parents are very important to hear. These are your children that you're entrusting to us. So we needed to hear from our parents. So I want to begin there with the parent survey. It actually closed on Friday, but due to the board book needing to go in for this special meeting, we closed it Wednesday, I believe it was, on what you see. So there were, I think, only a few more results that have actually come in, so it will not sway what we see, but we'll give you the complete after we close it up. In the survey, we sent it out to our parents to try to get some input from them, from their perspective after suffering through this, and give us some insight. Of course, I love more face-to-face, sit around a round table, let's talk about it. So, because surveys, sometimes it's hard to read in what you're really thinking, but this is the best we can do at this time. So we looked at, when we cut this off, we had 218 responses, which equates to about 424 of our students. So this is only a fourth of our population that actually responded. That's very unfortunate. I wish more parents would have taken time to complete the survey, because that would have, it just helps us when they do. But I realize people are busy, people have other things going on. So the national average for that's about a 25% that responded. National average is 33%. So we're not too far off of what, when you send a survey out or anyone sends out a survey, the national average for response is 33%. So that's still bad. That's just, we really wish, but I know I've been bad about that. People will send me surveys, I'm like, oh, I'll do it later. So now that I'm on this side of it, I'm gonna start filling them out because it's really important when people take time to send a survey, we need to fill it out. So we have to keep that in mind. This is only 25% of our parents, students of our parents that have responded. You'll see that breakdown, and I apologize. I didn't foresee that we would have parents here, so that's such a blessing. Normally we would have projected this, so I apologize. We should have done that and been prepared. But we'll be sending all this information out and putting it on our website and so forth. So, board, you can see as you scroll through it that it's broken down by grade levels. And then if you go to, for our first part, which scenario best fits your student returning to school in fall 2020? And we gave them the examples of hybrid, where it's some on campus, some at home, home-based, where everything's at home, or campus-based, where everything's at campus. And so you see by grade level where it falls. The lower levels tend to really lean towards in the classroom because put my glasses on, that would be helpful. So you see, and that didn't surprise me even with that small amount, because some I guess I'm thinking that because of the nature of trying to disseminate that information to their children, or having to work, or I don't have the reasons for that, but that was what was shown. Then as you go up to the higher levels, you start seeing a hybrid approach when you get to 7th through 12th grade, some in class, some at home. Once again, this is just 25% of our parents responding. So when you look at it as a whole, it has, we basically have the hybrid and classroom are, let's see, we don't even have the actual percentage on that. Oh, there it is. Even with my glasses, I can't see it. So hybrid actually with 41%, classroom 37%. Home-based was 21.9%. That's the overall when you put them all together. So hybrid seems like some were thinking, and I'm hopeful that they understood. We tried, that's the other thing when you send surveys out, do they completely understand what we're asking of a hybrid? Hybrid, they may not have understood what that was. We've discussed the hybrid piece. The part with the hybrid and why we're tending to lean more away from that is because of the fact that the logistical pieces of when students are here, when they're not, that cross-contamination, making sure we clean everything, the transportation piece, there's lots to consider with trying to do a hybrid piece. The classroom piece was the second, and then, like I said, when you look at the difference, you've got 37.1 to 21.9, so we're almost split there on that one. We also then asked about transportation method, because the big concern is trying to keep, if a family needs their children transported, how do we do that in a safe manner on a bus? And so we wanted to see how many really, by answering this, would need that mode of transportation. So you see we have 269 of those that responded parent drop-off pickup. So that's we don't have the percentage here, but that's, almost 3/4 of our I'd say about 70% of our parents that are saying parent drop-off pickup. I don't know if that's the way they were doing it, or if this is what they're saying, hey, if I bring them, I'm bringing them, I'm not putting them on a bus. That might have been the case. Bus was 65 of those that responded. And then we have other things, walk, student drives if they're at the high school. And then some have mixed methods due to they may drop them off in the morning, but they need to ride the bus in the afternoon.
At one point, you mentioned that if we did it, our last meeting, if we transported, we'd only be allowed to transport 16 in a bus. Is that standard still the same if we kept the CDC recommendation and the government's?
Well,
Or has that changed also?
The issue we have here is that we have two sets of recommendations. CDC, I believe at this point, I haven't seen anything different. I'm looking at Wayne so he can keep me honest because he's helping me remember all this. The CDC still has they'll have the strictest guidelines, and so at that point, yes, you're looking at anywhere, it's more like 12 to 14, because it would be one in a seat, skip a seat, one, so that takes your passenger bus, 60 passenger bus, and that puts it down to about 12. Unless you have in the same household, and then they can sit together. Recommendation from TEA was to, they did it more like a recommendation of what this needs to look like, to keep them separated, keep they in the same household. Some districts have even started talking about they'll have one in every seat. They'll be facing forward and wearing masks. That if we're going to ride the bus, everyone would have to wear a mask. So therein lies the problem. We have guidelines that are not matching up, and they're leaving a lot to local control, but we're not doctors. So we're trying to do our best to understand what is the safest thing to do to ensure that we take care of these babies. So we tend to lean more towards the most cautious. When you look at our safety protocol, and we get to it in a moment, you'll see we try to really lean to very, very cautious, which will be very uncomfortable for everyone because, when you do the most cautious way, it's the most difficult logistically.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We also had, if they had mixed methods, kind of tell us what they were doing, so you can read, I won't go through all that, but that kind of gives us some insight into what are we talking about here. Then we gave them a scenario. If state requirements prevent a normal face-to-face classroom experience this fall, which that's looking like that's going to be the case, I just don't see at this point that I don't think we're going to see normal for quite some time. I think everybody probably realizes that. Very unfortunate and very upsetting to all of us. How supportive are you of your students alternating distance learning and face-to-face learning? When we put this out, 2-3 weeks ago, we really were thinking that might be the best way to do it. So we wanted to see what the parents thought about that. And so basically we said, you might attend in person Mondays and Tuesdays and have distance learning Wednesdays and Thursdays. I have to say I was very surprised. Of course, this is just 25% of ours responding, but we had 56 of them respond. They were extremely supportive. So you got anywhere from really.
I go to Standby Elementary, middle, high school. So this is elementary.
Oh, okay. I didn't even notice that. All right, so elementary, thank you. You have to put this in bigger print, girl.
Sorry.
I didn't even see that, and it's the last thing that said, so. Okay, elementary, well then I totally read this wrong. Okay, elementary we had anywhere from neither supportive nor against up to extremely supportive. You've got 22 plus 9 plus 8 plus 56 of so 56 being extremely supportive of that. So once again, I'm still very surprised by that because I thought for some of our parents and some of you sitting here may be like I was on the other end of that, which would be 30 of not supportive, because if you have, I just saw that being kind of a nightmare. That's why we asked that question for parents of having your kids 2 days they're at school and then 3 days I've got to figure out what to do with them and I've got to go to work. So, that was one of the concerns that we had. And then middle school, you have extremely supportive, very high, 52 there. And only 14 not supportive at all. At the high school, 46 with 22 not supportive.
And that method is a hybrid, right? Okay.
Yes, that would be the hybrid piece. So it's trying to match back up to what we said earlier, which it really does. I mean, if they understood the hybrid, if you go back up and look at the percentages, our hybrid was high. Mhm. So it seems to be that there's some interest in that. I'm hoping they understood. That's why we tried to put an example, because we were afraid that they may not understand what we were asking. Then we wanted to know about the internet access, because we're very concerned that when you have the hybrid or the home-based learning, they have to have internet access. We can't do the learning like we did, the home-based learning like we did last time. When like I said, we found out that during spring break that we were going to have to close the schools. We came back that next week, and we had 1 week to get ready to start offering home-based learning. And knowing that many of our students did not have computers, and we felt like a lot of them did not have internet access, we went the paper packet way. At high school, some of the middle school classes, there was more access via using their computers, but we really went paper packet, which was very difficult. You know, parents had to go by and pick them up, and then they had to bring them back, and then you got that whole chance of the cross-contamination. So I think everybody did a fantastic job with it in the very short amount of time we had to make it happen. And then we basically, because we also knew, one, that we were sliding into the end of the year, we didn't try to, and because of the stress that everyone was feeling, it was a very, very fearful time, not that this is much less, but we tried to balance between providing academic access and not overstressing our parents, because we knew a lot of them were still trying to figure out how to work, or they had just gotten laid off, and now they were trying to figure out how to pay their bills. And so we were just trying to, and then we were all scared, what's happening? And it was very, what is going on in our world, and still. So we tried to balance that. We tried to be, very careful and not overload them by giving too much work. But in doing that in that way, we can't sustain that. There's, giving the students one assignment a week in each area, we would never cover what they need to cover in a grade level. So looking at the fall, we are going to have to do it differently for home-based learning, because in order for us to truly teach each child at their grade level all that we're required to teach them, we're going to have to take it to a whole different level. And that really is going to need to be done on the computers, because they need to have that they're home. We want them to be able to see lessons from the teachers. The teachers can Zoom or use some of these other platforms to talk to the student and help them if they're struggling. They can talk to the parents and help them. So we have to have another mode in which to do that. We cannot do it the way we did it. So therefore is the reason to ask this question, to see what we're dealing with. Thankfully, because of you taking our recommendation to purchase the Chromebooks, we will have devices for any child in our district that does not have one. So we'll be able to check them out. So every child will be able to have their own device at home. They won't have to share or use mama's phone or whatever they were trying to do, bless their hearts, during this past time. So thankfully, we are one of few districts that are going to be able to do that. So that's a great thing. But if you don't have any internet access, then you just have a device. So we wanted to know that. It looks like from the 25% that responded, we have 198 of those said they do have internet. So now we all said, but maybe that's why the other 75% didn't answer, because this was online. Maybe they didn't have internet. So there's the issue. The state,
Kara, real
yes.
quick, just to go back, and I think it's worth mentioning, you and I had this conversation, is when COVID hit in March, we were getting close, we were on the cusp of start testing. So most of
Yes.
the TEKs had already been covered, which kind of led to the fact that we didn't have as much material that we needed to cover those last few months. We'd already covered most of it. Most of it was going to be for remediation if the student hadn't passed their STAR test. So we'd already covered now at the beginning of the year.
We're at
We're
the-
we're at the beginning of teaching all those
Yes.
TEKs, so it's a different scenario.
Yes, and I apologize, that's what I meant when I said we were coming into that end of year slide. We had covered the majority, so thank you for clarifying that. But yes, we're looking at potentially an entire school year now. And that's what we're preparing for. We're preparing for the worst scenario and hoping that it's not this bad, but we have to prepare for the worst. So you're right, we've got to be ready to offer this type of learning for the entire school year. And we've got to go back and any learning loss that occurred due to being out of school so long, we've got to try to recover that for them. So with that said, you see that this survey looks like internet shouldn't really be a big problem, but we just feel like that's not the case. So we're already trying to figure out how to help with that. So we're working on getting more hotspots that will be available so that people could go up into certain areas, or maybe even it'll be close enough to their home they could access it. So we're working on different ways to push out internet access in our community. The state also is working on that. They are very aware of it. We don't know what that's going to look like. We've not heard any more information, but they are also working on it because they realize, especially out in rural areas, that that's very difficult. But that's something we're going to have to be ready to assist with, because if they feel like they want to keep their babies at home, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, if they want to keep their babies at home, we've got to figure out then how, they've got the device, now what kind of access can they have? So those are things we're still working on with the state. Yes, sir.
Okay, to determine if everybody's got internet or not, or how many percentage, every kid's got to sign up, at school, right?
Yes,
Register.
yes,
At that time, could that question be asked?
Yes.
That way you'll be covering 100% of the students?
that's a great idea, because we're actually getting ready to send out, open up the registration early for the point of finding out who is, what our parents are thinking when they so we want them to register, and they're gonna have to, one of the required tabs now is to click whether they want home-based or whether they want campus-based. So we could add that. We could add that. If you're choosing home-based, that do you have internet access? So that's a good idea.
But they're not registered online, what about the ones that don't have internet, they're registered?
Well, right now, registration will all be online unless they come in on the 22nd through, 22nd, 23rd. 22nd, 30th, 23rd is when we'll have it. And we'll be available if they call us and need assistance. We'll see if we can help them out. But online registration, we always have online registration early. And we had a large percentage of our parents do it. I don't know if they were doing it from work or doing it from their phones, but we did have a large percentage of our students that are doing it online. And then we'll find the rest of them when we get to the one-stop registration, which then will happen, which they can come in person, yes. So we'll do it both ways, but I'm just saying we can add that so we can start finding out now.
Do we have any historical information of what that percentage was last year or the year before that did it online versus?
We do, but I don't have it
No,
tonight.
not tonight, I was just wondering if it's a percentage, what that looked like.
And to follow along with that, when you do your application, if you identify the address where the kids are, you may have a point that you get a hotspot in a
Right,
certain area,
in that
there's more
area.
kids that need it in one area than other areas, so.
Okay, good ideas. Okay, you're getting those notes, okay, good. Thank you, yes, thank you. But yes, they'll have both ways to do it, because we realize some do not have internet access to do online. But I think some are finding ways to make that happen for that purpose. They may go to a neighbor's, they may find another way to make it happen, they just don't have it every day in their home. Okay, Then we asked about which of the following would be most useful for the district to offer students and parents to improve distant learning in the future. Devices for school work was the top one, so check. We're thankful we can do that. Class materials, and so I believe that was supposed to be school supplies, right? I didn't know we put it like that, class materials. Class materials being school supplies, and we are providing all school supplies this year. We didn't want parents to have to worry about that. You don't got enough to worry about, so, you know, we had some funds that we could use here in the district, and we have a lot of people in the community that are wanting to help us, a lot of businesses. So we're gonna make that happen this year. Technical support, we're going to make sure that in the distance learning format, home-based learning format, that there will be the ability to have support. Now, technical support as far as going to your house and setting it up, that's not going to be available, but we'll be able to talk people through or provide, so we're going to make sure we have that better, that good support. And then mobile hotspots or other internet access, there were 84 of those that had responded that put that. So those were the top things, and that, once again, none of that surprised us. So we're so excited that the first two, the most that everyone needed, we're taking care of, and we're working diligently to take care of the other two. Which of the following is a need you have for fall? This had to do beyond those initial learning pieces, and the top ones we had were meals. And so we are still having to work with the federal government. They've not given us guidance on whether we'll be able to do the meals like we did with the curbside. I can't imagine that they will decline that if we're still in this crisis. But we just, at this moment, we don't have that verification. But as soon as we have it, we will continue to make sure that our families have, the children have the meals.
Kira, just to clarify, you're talking about meals for students that are doing remote learning?
Yes. Yes. Yes, because right now, during the fall, you know, we had to get special permissions to do what we did this summer. And of course, they granted it, we just had to do an application. So we're waiting on the federal government to give us guidance on being able to apply and do that, continue to do that. We'll of course have the meals on campus, but to be able to provide like curbside. School supplies was the top one in this one. Once again, we're taking care of that. And then uniforms. Uniforms was brought into this. We had 67 of those that responded, have concerns about the uniforms. I'm sure you saw that there were some comments later in the survey concerned about uniforms, and there's a few asking that we do not have uniforms. So I don't have, you know, it's not, we didn't ask that specific question. That was not on our radar, was the uniforms. But apparently it rose up in this survey.
I was a little surprised that I mean, as I read through all the responses, I was surprised that there were so many that talked about financial hardship. I mean, I understand school uniforms have always been I'm not going to say divisive, but been the subject of conversation since we first implemented it. I don't know, in the 80s or 90s is when we implemented it. And of course, some of them was cost related and some of them was name brand related and everything, but from the responses that I read were more the financial hardship that it's causing the families. Some of them have lost their jobs and they don't feel that, or they don't believe that having to make that additional expense right now is feasible for them.
Right.
But I was shocked that there were that many that were saying that was a reason for a financial hardship.
Yes. And then the rest were those comments, so I didn't know there was any specific ones that jumped out at you. I'm not gonna try to read all of them, but then we had a place where parents could provide comments of specific things that they're concerned about, which the board has every one of them to be able to read as we make decisions. And we are taking every one of them and reading them and ensuring that we try to address it. So that was the survey that we put out. Like I said, I wish we'd had a better response. But I think it does give us an indication of some of the areas of concern and needs. I I think we understand the needs, and that was the main thing we need to know is how do we meet these needs during this time.
I would like to comment, you and I had a conversation earlier today, and my concern is, let me back up. I'm considering the amount of work that I know the administrative team did, and the campus principals did, that everyone did in reacting to the pandemic and keeping our kids safe. Just like any other parent, the biggest concern is delivery of instruction. And I mean, just like I said earlier in my opening comments, is there wasn't a playbook for this, what we were doing. I mean, we were reacting, we were doing the best job we possibly could be. We still didn't have our distance learning piece put into place that we've talked about through Panther Pathways. The fact that we're purchasing these Chromebooks now puts us 3-4 years ahead because we were going to phase it in. But one of my concerns as a parent, and I'm sure several in the community, is the delivery method. And there were several comments that they were never contacted by a teacher during the period. Again, we didn't have a playbook, but now that as we're moving forward, my question to you is was earlier today, is what checks and balance do we have to make sure that our teachers are reaching out and they are in contact with those parents and those students, either on a weekly basis or every 2-week basis. And I think we're still working on that. I don't understand why we can't gauge Google Meetings and see how many meetings a teacher is doing in a week period. Is there not a mechanism in the platform that tracks that?
Okay, so I'll go ahead and move towards that. We'll come back to safety in a moment. So as we look at the delivery method for the learning, where we are at this moment, and the information that we have, we felt like the best thing is to give parents the choice between home-based or campus-based. That falls right in line with the TEA guidance and with CDC guidance as of today. And like I said, tomorrow this could all change. So we felt like it was important to let the parents know because we know they're very fearful and some of them do not want to send their kids back on campus. And that's completely understandable. My 6-year-old granddaughter's at my house right now staying with me. And I just want to wrap her all up and just keep her safe right there in my house. So I totally understand that. So we feel it's important they have the choice. And it's our job to figure out how to make that work. And we're going to all have to work together because we are out in uncharted waters and none of us have done this before and there are no rules and there's no clear direction on how to make it happen. But I do believe we can. So the first, of course, is that campus-based, which students would come into the campuses, and we'll come back to safety protocols here in a moment of how we would try to keep them safe in doing that. The other being the home-based, we're calling it home-based because we just thought it made more sense. You're either at the campus or you're at home. Home-based learning would be through, we did some research over different platforms that we could use. And we have already been using Google Classroom, Google Suites, especially at the secondary level and some at the lower levels. And we felt like we need to streamline everything because what we don't need to do to our parents is have first grade does this, and then third grade does this, and sixth grade does this. And then a parent that has a child in every one of those is like, goodness gracious, this is too much. So we need to have one platform so the parents then can learn that platform and have technical support and so forth that way. So that was the first thing. So we're using Google Classroom. Our teachers are going to have, some of our teachers know how to use it, others do not, so they're having training. So we've been shooting out all these, there's great Google training on videos. So a lot of our teachers this summer are spending their time this summer trying to learn all of this. We're calling them back in from their summer break to sit down and whether it's through Zoom or in meetings where we're spread out, they're planning and working and looking at what is this going to look like. Because we didn't have time to do that before, and so we're trying to take the time to be prepared. So that's the first part, streamlining what's used so it's easier on the parents and on the students. Providing training for the parents and the students. Providing technical assistance for the parents and the students so that they have everything they need to be successful from that home base. There will be a commitment, though, that has to come from the parents to do this, because the older they are, the less the commitment may need to be, because those children should be able to be more independent and so forth. Depends on the student. I think about my son in high school, I don't know, I probably had to stand over him. But the younger ones are going to definitely need assistance. We're looking at doing here's where the hybrid might happen, of having the lessons recorded, and then higher levels might have virtual lessons where they want the kids to be in that Zoom meeting or that time, or Google Meets is what we're going to use. Google Meets, I'm going to quit saying Zoom, we're going to keep it streamlined. So Google Meets, they would come in there and they would have certain times. For our babies, more than likely, we will, and like I said, we're still building all this, so please know everything I'm telling you is as of today, and we're still working on this. They would have lessons, so they would be able to watch their teacher do the lesson. They would have an opportunity to have that contact with their teacher. If they need more support, we will provide those individual students the support they need. The parents, they will have communication like we weren't able to do before because we did not have that set up. So there will be more communication and opportunities for the parents to ask questions and have immediate feedback. We were working a lot this time off of basically email. If we had a good email address, and we found out some of our parents, we did not have good email addresses for them through this time, is one of the things. I know one time we were trying, and I'm not saying that the teachers that we didn't miss a step, please don't misunderstand me, but I do know from our side there were several times we did try to reach out to parents and we were unable to get in contact with them because the phone numbers had been changed, the email address had been changed. There were circumstances like that. So it's going to be very, very important when we have registration that we have good contact information. And then on our side, once we have that, moving forward for this new year, there will be set expectations that we have district-wide, and we haven't set all of those yet because we're working through our curricular pieces. Once that's decided, there will be set times that the teachers will be available. There will be contacting parents. We will have all of that laid out so that the teachers know exactly what is expected, what type of communication has to be done. And then through the Google, as I shared with you earlier today, the Google platform right now does not have like a built-in piece for administrators to watch all that, but we're looking at an addition to it called Little Sis, I believe is what it's called. Our technology director, he started investigating it today along with a couple of others. So they'll have a way to actually watch and see and monitor and hold everyone accountable to the standards that we set. We know, and that's a big conversations we've had moving forward. For this to work, we have to have good communication in place. We have to figure out a way to make this happen by communicating virtually. So we will make sure that those are in place, and as we get there, I'll constantly keep bringing this information back to you. But today, I wanted to bring this to you today, not because it's ready, but because it's so much that you see how long it's taking me just to share this much. That you need, I think everybody needs time to digest it and think about it. We can get ideas from you. You've already given us 2 that we did not even think of. So we can have feedback. And then we're going to have to work through this together. I'm sure we'll have, we may have to set up like a hotline for our parents, maybe a place for them to put their ideas or thoughts as we go through this, so we can learn from them what's happening on your side and how can we make it better. But we're going to have to do this together. And when we start it's the state even realizes they've given us the whole first semester that they're going to hold us harmless on our ADA because they know that it's going to be very difficult as we build this across the state. And then the final overarching is that we are required by the state as districts to ensure that these components are built in. They've also learned from, like you said, we had to react last time. Now we're trying to plan and be proactive. And so everything will be built better. I don't think it will be perfect, but we will fix it as soon as we see when there's an issue.
So am I understanding the structure going into next year as of today, knowing that it's a moving target and it may change tomorrow? I'm gonna have, if I have 2 children, I have a choice of having the second grader stay home and my 9th grader go.
Yes.
And then if I decided I wanted the second grader to go after all, do I have to commit to 6 weeks of them staying at home, or are you just gonna let them come and go as the parent?
Very good question.
That could be
We are
horrible to manage.
still working on that. We have not set the amount of time, but in order for there to be instructional continuity, the state has said they recommend, and we strongly agree that a commitment is made. Because to go one day, because we're kind of afraid, like high school students may say, well, today I want to go to class, but tomorrow I don't want to. No, we can't do that because you're going to have different teachers. The way to set this up logistically is a nightmare to do it like this. And so for us to really do it well and have an understanding and help each of those students, we've got to have a commitment from that side. So that's why when these parents, we're going to try to communicate to them the best we can. Once again, I wish I could have a big town hall and just explain it all to them in person and answer their questions right there. But we're going to try to figure out many varied ways to get the information out so they understand when you commit to this, then you're committing for 3 weeks or 6 weeks. We're leaning towards the first grading period. That for 6 weeks, you are in this mode of learning, and then after the 6 weeks, if you feel like that's just not working for me, and now of course, it still has to be somewhat fluid because there's going to be caveats to that. So you started at campus-based, but then some family member has symptoms of COVID, then we would need that child to go to home-based, because now they need to be quarantined with their family. So there'll be circumstances like that we can't even foresee, because we've got to protect the other children. So we have to monitor. That's why part of the safety protocol you'll see is that every child will, parents are going to have to sign off on. Right now we have the state's recommending once a week on Monday that they're saying they have none of these symptoms. They have not been in contact with anybody that has any of these symptoms. So they're attesting that my child's safe to come to school, and then we're going to be monitoring them like hawks, walking around touching foreheads, and if somebody coughs, you know how it is now when you're in the grocery store, everybody coughs, and everybody just, starts running almost. So we'll be monitoring everything very carefully, because we've got to protect those that decided to come campus-based. So it will still be fluid, even though we'll put a point to be committed as long as none of these other things occur. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I know I can ramble a lot on this because this is a lot of stuff that rolls through my head all the time. So on the returning, we're calling it Aransas Pass Panthers Return to Learn. And we're getting ready to roll this out to our parents so that they can start trying to digest this. And so we're looking at showing them that campus-based learning is on-campus classes, face-to-face instruction with an APISD teacher. Transportation to and from school will be provided. District will follow state and local guidelines to ensure safety, sanitary, and secure learning environments. And we'll go into the safety protocols in a moment. The home-based learning, learning will be distributed and submitted electronically through Google Classroom. Teachers will be available to provide assistance. Attendance requirements, this is big. The state there has to be attendance. So if you choose home-based learning, we have certain things that will be in place that will show the attendance every day. And if the child does not complete those attendance or the task or whatever's needed for that day, they are counted absent. And then if they keep being absent, they can fall into truancy via home-based even. We've got to help the parents understand that when you commit to home-based, you're committing that your child's going to participate. If they don't do what we need them to do, then they're in jeopardy of the attendance laws. So this is big for parents to understand because, they kind of gave us a freebie, you might say, in the spring. We kind of got to do it the best we could. But the state is not allowing that now. They have very strict guidelines on us, and so now we're having to figure out how to do that and not just, cause too much pressure for you, but it's going to be pressure. I'm just telling you, home-based will not be like it was in the spring. It will look completely different. But I won't read all of that, but you see grading policies will apply. The kids at home will be required to do the same thing that the kids are doing on campus. I mean, it won't be watered down because we owe it to these children not to water this down. Because if we do, we're gonna pay for this for years. We won't, these children, and I keep pointing to our one young lady over there, these children, they will pay for this for years. And we've gotta get this right. I mean, I like I said, this is all we think about because we have got to get this right. Safety, but good educational opportunity is the piece. So you'll see, like I said, I'm not gonna try to read through all of that right now. We're still tweaking what's going out to the parents. We're going to, as much as I do not like doing videos, I've learned that that's just one of my new job descriptions, is have to put myself in front of a camera because I feel it's important. If I had all of the parents here today, I wouldn't have to worry about that, but these are gonna know every detail, so y'all go share it with everyone. But we're gonna I'm gonna try to get a video of me talking through this, not this long, make it short and sweet, to the point, have a FAQ page that compares the two. Ms. Blaze has been working on that so they can kind of visually see it. I was thinking this weekend, we actually talked about Thursday having a place where they can, if they have questions, they can send an email to me and I will answer them, and then we will start creating an FAQ page so that parents are like, what does that mean? We're like, oh, we didn't explain that well enough. Because sometimes it is, you think it makes sense and then people read it and it didn't make any sense at all. So we want to find as many ways to push it out there in different ways and then have parents be able to ask us questions and us answer them within 24 hours so they can make an informed decision. So once they go in to register their child, I need them to fully understand what they're signing up for. So when they say home base, they understand that either they or someone in their home can be the learning coach, is what we were calling them. They're going to have a learning coach. Somebody's going to have to be around to ensure that this is getting done. So it may be grandma, you may be working and a grandma may have to do this. So can grandma, we're going to try to make it where it's not so overwhelming, but it's going to take people, the teachers will do the teaching. You won't have to do that, but somebody's going to have to monitor and make sure the students are participating. Especially the babies, you know how that is. They'll be there a little bit and then they're off task, and so that's where we're going to have to work together if you choose home-based learning. So that's where we at this point have left it on the options. Some districts are doing hybrids where the kids come in some days and then they're at home some days. For us, the size of district we are, that was going to be a logistical nightmare. And it's not to say that we may not have to move to that at some point, maybe especially at the secondary level as we really work on this, especially with career tech classes, fine arts, and things like that. But at this point, we're not putting that as something we are interested in trying to do, because we're really concerned about how we're going to get people to school just doing it this way. So we're trying to look at what we can actually pull off is where we are, because we only have so many buses, we have trouble getting drivers, we have some of our bus drivers that are older drivers, and I'm fearful some of them may not want to drive this year, because they don't want to put themselves in harm's way. So we have a lot of obstacles before us that we're anticipating, and we don't really have answers for. So I'm just being real honest. There's a lot to think about here, a lot to do. So I guess I'll hush for a moment, and on the learning part, the 2 parts, questions, comments, before we get into how we're going to try to keep people safe if they come on campus.
As far as attendance, they're going to sign up for online or in school. Do we have any, is the state going to monitor something, make sure kids didn't get dropped through the loop, that they just didn't sign up to go back to school?
Well,
I mean, I know the state has a monitoring system, that they
Right.
monitor where kids in school, that last year, they should register somewhere this year.
Right.
Are they continue to do that, or not?
well, we'll have to as districts, because if they were with us and they're not picked up on somebody else's coding in another district, we'll start looking for them. And everybody will be looking for those kids.
We're gonna do that.
Yes, we'll have to, or there'll be dropouts for us.
Because I just know during Harvey, a lot of our kids got dropped through the.
Right,
it just-
yeah, now,
it-
now,
so.
whether we find them or not, maybe, you know, because we
Yeah.
couldn't find some of our kids even during the spring, because they had gone off to go live with other relatives in other states and things, so we had a real hard time finding some of our kids. But hopefully, we can account for everyone, you know, whether they're with us, having their, you know, one of their choices, or they've registered with another district, and just about it, I haven't found a district yet that's not doing something like this. I've not seen anybody saying, no, you're coming to school, period. Well, they can't now, because state, that's right, you can't now, which was a good thing. The state just said, you will offer remote learning if the parent so chooses. So that was a good thing. So that doesn't leave parents in some district having to struggle. So,
Thank you.
No, the only comment I want to make, Kara, is the fact that, for lack of a better word, we did have a free pass or easier path in the spring, and looking at the return to learn, you see the expectations. It's going to be a big learning curve for our parents, because the students aren't going to be able to be sitting around as much as they did during the spring of one assignment. And when you see the requirements and the fact that if they're not doing these things, they're going to be counted absent, that just opens up another box as far as truancy and what that entails for them. And then for us, and I hate to even say this, but I mean, the truth is, and the bottom line is, everything revolves around money, and our ADA funding is going to be tied to this also. I realize what you said about hold harmless for the first 2 weeks, but at some point, the state's going to come in and
Oh, yes.
is going to say, we want a true accounting
Right.
of what your daily attendance is for you to be funded. And we take that in consideration, that we still haven't bounced back from Hurricane Harvey with our numbers
right.
of what effect that could have for us as funding for the following school year, and staying financially solvent to do what we need to do. So there's a lot of communication here that has to be done with those parents that are choosing home learning.
Yes, yes.
Are we utilizing progress to get the word out as well?
Yes, yes. And we try to send it to the TV stations too. Not always
Well, they're not.
makes it, but.
They're not gonna cover it, they're just want to highlight.
Yes, we try everything we can think of.
And do you have anything like the parents are going to sign a contract with you that if they're homeschooled, that they're required that 2 6 hours a day?
Well, we haven't gotten there yet to know if it's gonna be a contract or what it's going to look like, but
Or at least, you know, they.
but we're gonna want them to commit, yes,
Yeah.
or them to at least be aware you registered this way.
Yeah.
So for 6 weeks, your child is in this
So they
mode
can't
of
come back and
learning.
decide, I didn't know that was part of the deal.
Right.
You know,
And we're gonna make
that's
sure they're
expectation.
very clear that that's what they just committed to, because we don't want them to be surprised.
Yeah.
That's not a good surprise. So if they choose, I'll move on. If they choose to do campus-based, then there's the next big issue. So we started with transportation, so that was like, how do we get them here? And so, right now, like I said, we are choosing to go to an extreme for the safety of our children. So, in this document, and we've actually reconsidered this somewhat after the latest, so I didn't realize the latest document wasn't in here until now. So this has already changed, but we're going to go off this. So driver and monitor take temperature prior to each, this may be, so the monitor will take their temperature prior AM and PM. Wear a face mask, monitor will sit in the back of the bus when moving, monitor will get off the bus at each stop to take temp of those on the bus, getting on the bus, boarding the bus. TEA has given us some guidance there that may not be, that's not necessarily, may not have to be a requirement where they can fill out the attestation by the parents, so they get on the bus, the parents have confirmed that my child does not have fever, does not have any of these symptoms, and they are attesting to that. We put this because that's where we felt we needed to be, but when they gave us some leeway to move away from that, it was really a good thing, one, for time, to get kids off the side of the road and onto the bus, and for time and safety. And then also thinking about here, it's so hot, we take their temperature on the side of the road at the bus stop, they're gonna, of course, have a temperature because they're standing in 100-degree weather. So we found that when we would do curbside service this summer, I'd go in, check my temperature, and it'd be 101 because from walking to the car to the door, you know. So that just doesn't make sense. We'd have a lot of mad parents saying, your baby has temperature. No, he doesn't. You know, he's hot because he's standing at the bus stop. So we're going to rethink that as long as the guidelines allow us to do that. They gave us some leeway to work more with the parents on the attestation, and then of course we'll monitor them very closely all day on the campus. But the only way they'll be able to get on the bus is with that form. So we are leaning right now toward every child on the bus will wear a face mask. We just feel like that is such a confined space, and if you've never been on a bus with children, you tell them to sit down, face forward, and that happens for about 3 seconds, you know, even with a monitor. So kids are going to be kids. So to protect them from themselves, we feel like on the bus, they need to wear a mask. I know that some parents don't want their children to wear a mask. I completely understand that. So they would need, if we keep this and we really feel like that's necessary, the parents would have to, you know, take their children to school. And we're not doing it to be ugly, we're just doing it to protect their children. And we just, in order for us to be able to put enough on the bus to get them all here in a timely fashion so we can have class, we're going to have to put some things like that in place so that we can put more on the bus. Because to do 12 on a bus, we'll be running the bus all day just to get kids to school. So we have to, they're giving us more leeway with that, but we're going to put as many safety precautions in place within the confinement of that bus as possible. And we feel like the mask, as the governor has even attested to now, everyone wear a mask, wear your mask. So that will be one spot we will say to wear a mask. And I know that's a big concern for parents because I've talked to some, they don't want their children to have to wear the mask. At this time, we have not landed on that they would wear their mask in the buildings, but we're still working on that, looking at CDC guidelines, working with what TA is going to say, but we're leaning towards our staff wearing masks, but the children, as long as we would keep them separated, at least 6 feet apart, and sanitizing everything very carefully, them not sharing supplies, doing everything we can on that piece, walking down the halls one side, down the other, no interaction that way. It really makes me sad because it's almost like, you know, just not the school setting we want for our children. But for their safety's sake, that's the type of thing we would have to do for now. Try to make it as fun as we can and love on them as much as we can, but we're gonna have to, our main thing is keep them safe. So I'll come back to that in a moment. Food service, we are looking at, you see the different options. We're still trying to look at which is best, but we're looking at elementary really is going to be more of a grab and go. They would line up, single file, go through, they would get their lunch, and then they would go back to the classroom or a designated spot to have their lunch 6 feet apart. So everything, they wouldn't touch anything, they wouldn't share anything, everything will have to be all those things we try to teach them in school about share and play nice and hug your friend, and none of that can happen right now. So we'll have to teach those social skills later. So we'll have to go to very regimented more type to keep them safe. I mean, that's gonna be our main focus on this piece. High school, Right now, it's a requirement that they have to have a food choice, and so they may still have to go through the line, pick their choice, but they will be served. They will never touch anything. It will be served to them. But we're hoping the guidelines will be changed so that they'll have a grab and go also. So that'll be even more sanitary. But our staff has done a tremendous job. Our food service staff has done a tremendous job this summer of taking care of business, keeping everyone clean and safe, and getting hundreds and hundreds of meals out to our families. So I have no doubt we will make this work. And then I talked about the classroom assignments, if they're being dropped off as car riders, once again, they'll have to have that form in order to enter the building. If not, the parents will be called back because we want to confirm that those children are safe. You'll see here, like I said, I'm not gonna read through all of it, I wanna answer your questions. Instruction time, we're required to do an appropriate hygiene practices lesson. There will be very strong protocols in place, and everyone monitoring that, and having extra personnel around trying to make sure when they go to the bathroom, ensuring that only a few children go in at a time, and that we monitor that to keep them safe. Lots of hand sanitizer, keeping those hands clean. Class size, I'm hoping tomorrow we'll have some true guidance on this. At first, it was no more, for this summer, it was no more than 10 in a classroom with one teacher. We don't have enough space. If we used every room in the building and we had our 1,600 kids come back to campus, we don't have enough room to do 10 in a room for one teacher. That's why some districts are reaching out to their churches and so forth to find other spaces. So that's why we need to know from the parents, are you planning on sending them to the campus or doing your learning at home, so we can work on the space. They have since taken it to like square footage. So much square footage, you can have so many in, which most of our rooms can fit about anywhere from 12 to 15 students in by doing it. So it's basically keeping them 6 feet apart. So we're waiting on final guidance on that to determine what the class size ratios will be. And that will be dependent upon which campus they're on too, and which classes they're in, what they can hold. But once again, the whole point is safety. How do we, and we're so blessed here that a lot of our class sizes are very small anyway. I'm so thankful that you've allowed that over the years, that we haven't packed them into the classes. So our classes usually are 15 to 17 anyway. So, if we get some guidance where we can have 12 to 15 in a classroom, I really don't see any reason we can't pull this off. We're gonna have to reconfigure some desks and maybe get some partitions. We're looking at all those different things of how we can separate and protect the children. There will be extra cleaning. We will have custodial staff on site all day long, constantly going around wiping down doorknobs, cleaning the bathrooms. When the kids go out to have their very structured distancing PE, they will, a recess, they will go in and clean the rooms. Everything's just it's gonna be very formal. That's the only word I can think of saying, how do I explain this? It's gonna be a little more formal than we've ever done or we like, but it will be done in the name of safety to provide, and I know teachers well enough to know that even in the midst of that, the children will feel loved, they will receive what they need, and they will have fun. They will make sure of it. Teachers just have a way to do that. They got into it to make the difference in the lives of children, and we didn't know when we signed up to do this that we'd be doing it like this. But I can tell you teachers will rise to the occasion, and they will make sure that these babies know that kids are so resilient, especially our young ones. They're so resilient. They're going to handle this better than we do as the adults. I mean, I think it just makes us sad, and we hated it for our seniors that they didn't get to have their senior year like they should. I hated that my granddaughter, she didn't get to have her kindergarten graduation. She never will get that back. I was talking to her about it, and she's like, oh, because I said, I can get a cap and gown here. It's not your blue color, but it's purple from, and you can be a Panther, and I'll take your picture. Okay, she was just, it wasn't a big deal to her, but to her mom and to me, it's a big deal. So I think we have to keep that in perspective too. They respond to how we respond. If we can keep a positive attitude, if we can say, this is not going to last forever, we pray to the Lord above, and we just make the best of it, we're teaching them more than just the academics. We're teaching them to be resilient. We're teaching them to be overcomers, and teaching them that life sometimes is just not fair. And, we have to rise up and try to make the best of bad situations. And so that's what we're trying to do here at Aransas Pass. That's what my team is committed to. That's what our teachers are committed to. And we still have a lot to work on here, but that's a flyby of where we are today. So questions, concerns about the safety protocol?
Do we have any protocols for the teachers? I know, because our teachers are probably going to be the most vulnerable, being,
Yes.
Anybody over 40 to 60, and that, we need to make sure that we protect them, and we're protecting the students. We have a lot of guidelines on that, but I've not heard a lot of guidance on how we're going to protect the teachers.
And there's not a lot. So that's our job to provide that and ensure we're going to be working with our teachers, those that feel that they have a compromised immune system, or maybe they have an elderly person in their home. If there's some situations, we're going to work with them to try to find the best situation for them to be in to take care of their jobs. So we're going to try to monitor that and work the best that we can to protect our staff. One, because they're family and we want to take care of them, but also because we need them to stay healthy, because we need them to teach the children. And so it's a double-edged sword here. We've got to work both of those angles. But yes, sir, there's not a lot said about the teachers, but we've got to protect them also.
Anybody else have any questions on the safety protocols? Next item is the TEA PowerPoint presentation.
Well, that was basically just an FYI for you. I pretty much covered it throughout what I just said. So they do talk about synchronous and asynchronous learning, but synchronous basically is having students having to sit. These are our options that they gave us. Students sitting, the teacher, they're scheduled in at 10 a.m. for Algebra 1. They have to be on that computer, having that instruction at that time to be in attendance and get class credit. Asynchronous is basically, you can use a variety of things that I've talked about that we're choosing. We're choosing asynchronous, pretty much. There might be some opportunity for the synchronous piece, but asynchronous is more of the pre-recorded, some flex time, but there will be screen times that they'll need to, that students could have, depending on the grade level, anywhere from 2 to 6 hours of screen time or activities. It may not just be screen time, but activities. Because you think about a school day, we normally have 7 hours worth of work or engagement or activities or learning or so forth. So the TEA PowerPoint basically just goes through some details on that, and then we're taking that to make our decisions for what we're trying to do. It does go into the ADA funding, the attendance, and all those pieces, and all that is on, for anyone that's interested, on the TEA website, Texas Education Agency. When you go to that, there is bars that slide across, and there's COVID updates. You can click there, and you can see all this that we're talking about from TEA, the guidance they give us at Texas Education Agency. And they have, this piece is under waivers. There's a bunch of tabs, so look under the waivers tab. I don't really know why it's there, but it's there. And you'll find this PowerPoint. It doesn't really have a lot of bearing except for how it affects what we decided to do. I mean, it has all the bearing, I'm sorry, but I guess as far as parents are concerned, you just want to know what we're doing. That's TEA's guidance to us, and I wanted you as board members to have that, so you'll know where we're coming from. And hopefully that doesn't change a lot tomorrow and have a new PowerPoint.
And just for board information, slide number 17, in the whole slide basically is the framework, everything that Ms. Cook covered with this, but slide 17 talks about the funding piece and talks about the first 6 weeks and the whole harmless, and then it also talks about the different requirements that the district has to be monitoring and the student has to be doing for us to receive funding. So if you're interested in the funding piece, it's on that slide. Give me 1 second here. Does anybody have any questions on the TEA presentation or PowerPoint presentation? I'm gonna move on to agenda number 4, which is the action agenda. To consider and approve a proposal for drainage study by Urban Engineering. As you'll recall, last meeting we did approve this, but there has been a change, and I was gonna let Ms. Cook review that with you.
I'll get it open here. Yes, there it is. So I brought this to you. This was the proposal, and it was in you had 3 options or 3 different areas to look at. Area one being the main area of concern for the concession stand that we're wanting to build and the renovations in that area. And included all the stadium, most of the high school, baseball, softball fields. And you see a picture of that. And then you had area 3. Area 2 is actually, I'm remembering right, because I can't get this full up. Area 2 was behind AC Blunt, all on that side of Victory Lane, all out in that area. And then area 3 is a small portion over in front of the high school where we have water stand when we have real hard rains. So they sent that to us, and I'll just apologize. This is not my wheelhouse here, so I depend on others to kind of say this is what you need to do in this, because I don't do drainage. So I apologize. I didn't know the right questions to ask, so I will take the blame for this. But apparently, I appreciate Mr. Mullinax asking the question later about, but if we do area 1 only and get the drainage plan there, what will it do to the other areas, and could it impede or help? So I posed that back to Urban Engineering, and I put in what their responses were. So basically, in a nutshell, after the fact, they say, well, it would be good for you to do area 3 in front of the high school for sure, because it does tend to drain towards area 1 and towards our little pond area. But did not feel like, from what they know at this point, that area 2 is going to be a part of that plan. So you see the recommendation they gave is a potential for you approved area 1, but I'm bringing it back to you tonight saying, based on what I now know from Urban Engineering, I would propose that you move to now also include area 2, and they've started today, so they would go ahead and just add that right into it, and it shouldn't put us behind much. And then, area 3, I apologize. Area 3 in front of the high school, and then area 2, you give me the opportunity to, if area 2 is needed, once they really get into the study, then we would add that if needed. That's probably as clear as mud, but that's...
Yeah, so just for public information, as you guys all know, we passed the bond and we completed the elementary school and the gym. The last piece of the bond is the concession stand, and part of the conversation that we've had as a board is, do we want to leave it on the north side or do we want to move it to the south side? So in doing so, we've had conversations about the fact that area floods between the baseball field and the softball field. We never really had a drainage study. When this property was purchased and we built the original school, we just kind of piecemeal and grew from the high school to Charlie Marshall to AC Blunt. So we're having some drainage problems. So one of the conversation pieces was to do a drainage study. We did approve that at the last meeting, and now we're coming back and asking to include the area in front of the high school, which would be the parking lot area, because that drains back towards the pond also. So just to be diligent, the administration is asking us to include that versus just concentrating on the areas of the baseball and softball fields. Does the board have any questions on the recommendation from administration?
And I looked, they said somewhere in the letter that if you have to do option 2, there will be no cost. Did it say something like that in there?
It wasn't, no, it's not, no, it would not be for, it was, trying to get that open.
It's just,
I'm technical.
it's
Over here.
targeted survey work.
Yeah, it said they would not charge, it wasn't for the actual study, let me go back to what it said. They said, I spoke with our survey coordinator and we can do the targeted survey work in option 2, area 2, while we are surveying the other areas. We will do that at no extra cost. That's the targeted survey work, but the actual plant study and plan would be the amount that they have.
Yeah, I know they brought up the fact that there's drainage culverts between those areas over to, from here over to the high school. And they weren't sure what to put there, so,
Right.
So it's just concern.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second, I'm trying to scroll through.
Have we notified the city that we're planning to do this?
Yes, they are working with the city. They are in close contact with them because they know they're, as a matter of fact, they knew that they're working on their drainage plan too, so they coordinate.
I don't want to do this and then go to the city, so we'd love to
no.
start coordinating it.
Okay.
Yes, perfect.
Any other questions? If there are no questions, on a motion to approve the proposal from Urban Engineering to include areas 3 and 1 for professional surveying services and for the drainage study as recommended by administration. I have a motion by Ms. Diaz. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Director. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item is agenda item number 4. It's a discussion, it's time set aside for any board member to request future topics for meetings. Does anybody have anything they'd like to?
I'd like, since the survey brought up a lot about uniform stuff, maybe we can discuss that and see if we can do something to help them out. For next year, for the uniform waiver or something, we just have to put on the agenda to discuss it.
Well, if we're going to put it on the agenda, based on the timeline, we would have to not put it on there as a discussion item, as an action item. It's not listed on our agenda for today, so we really can't discuss it other than to
No.
place it on there. I don't have a feeling either way, so if you want to place it on the agenda, that's fine. Will you make sure that that's
Yes.
placed as an action
As an
item? I
action.
don't know if there's any additional information you can bring to us other than what the survey showed.
Maybe we'll put in there what the current requirements are, so you'll know what they're required to do and what you're waiving or adjusting.
And one of the things we may consider is doing a 1-year waiver and then revisiting it instead of doing it as a formal deletion of policy.
No, that's what I would think. If you do it, then just kind of.
Just as a
waiver,
waiver.
temporary waiver
Okay.
for a short period of time, and then implement that.
So make sure the agenda says it's posted as a waiver.
Okay.
Is there anything else from anyone? If there's not any more information for the board, the time is 7:54, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for